the thing that I wanted to do with this is that I think we're going to make a pretty big statement about College of Eloquence, and it's not exactly something that, like, for me with my rating system, it's like I only really put something into gray if I can prove that there's an exploit there, right? We're talking about like something that has such a cheap resource that can get refueled if you, like we talk about the bag of rats exploit, right? Where like if it's tied to you kill a creature and then you can just infinitely regenerate it, we would consider that to be a pretty busted exploitable feature. This is one that's not quite. It's like it's kind of a judgment call, right? Where looking at College of Eloquence and specifically with one of its features, we're talking about something that is doing a really strong effect that I think is a little hard to quite. I don't know. That's really why I wanted to get you on here, because putting it into words exactly how strong this is something that I think I needed some more support for. And you are, like I've said here on the channel multiple times. By the way, for anybody that doesn't know, this is Ross Leiser, Outlandish Adventure Productions. Helped me as a consultant on my merchant class. We worked together on Legends of Frozenfar, and you are currently doing a whole remaster of a lot of your homebrew classes that you put out.
Yes. For those who don't know me by name, which I've actually found increasingly, especially over the last year, that I don't have good name recognition. But what people have constantly recognized me as is when I say I'm the sculptor guy or I'm the accursed guy. Those two are by far my two most well-known classes.
Yeah, I've kind of gotten that with the merchant now. It's funny how many like Reddit messages I've gotten where people are like, "Hey, I found your like link through the merchant and like wanted to hit you up over here." But yeah, it's kind of funny how you just get sort of, I don't know, classified as, "Oh yeah, you're the dude that made that." Like, anyways. So College of Eloquence is, like I said, it's one that I looked at and I'm looking at it and thinking, this is crazy strong. And I've heard some counter arguments against this, and I figured might be a pretty good idea to address them here. Now, I'll say up front that I think College of Eloquence is one that I think I would have a hard time accepting at my table currently as is. So let's just start reading into it, and then we'll get into some of the features. So, College of Eloquence. Adherents of the College of Eloquence master the art of oratory. Persuasion is regarded as a high art, and a well-reasoned, well-spoken argument often proves more persuasive than facts. These bards wield a blend of logic and theatrical wordplay, winning over skeptics and detractors with logical arguments and plucking at heartstrings to appeal to emotions of audiences. So I love this idea of like a philosopher sort of a bard here that you're getting out of this.
Or a politician sort of bard. You can easily play that with this. The flavor is phenomenal. It's a very different style of bard than we've had in the past.
Right. And I love that, by the way. I think D&D very much needs this. But
yes, I agree. I absolutely agree.
So getting into the features real quick. And it's bard. These are pretty quick subclass reviews. So Silver Tongue. This is a third level College of Eloquence feature. You are a master at saying the right thing at the right time. When you make a charisma persuasion or charisma deception check, you can treat a d20 roll of 9 or lower as a 10. So there's...
You know what scares the crap out of me about this feature? It comes in at the exact same level you get expertise. So if you are just a totally average bard, you have a +3 to charisma, you literally cannot roll lower than a 17.
Man.
If you take the expertise in either persuasion, or deception. And I personally do not like the fact that you can have that crazy amount of reliability at level 3. Like, that feels exploitable to me, because this is the level where, for example, College of Lore gets 3 skill proficiencies, which is very good.
Right.
Like, Bard already gets a lot of skill proficiencies.
Yeah.
But when you compare the two features, one is offering a lot of flexibility, whereas this one is offering like an absolutely absurd level of reliability. Not being able to roll lower than a 17, when we're talking like in adventures, published adventures, most of the time you're looking at a 15 or lower as the difficulty score for these kinds of tests. it almost literally says you can't fail
Yeah.
these checks in tier 1 adventures.
That's so insanely strong for like social interaction. I mean, like, I don't like features that just straight up say your modifier can't be lower. Like, whenever you're going to roll a d20, right? That to me is, we know that chance is going to be a core game mechanic, right? So if you're completely stripping out what is perceived to be the failure side of the die, I don't think it should be a mechanic in the game. I don't mind something like this, maybe as a temporary kind of a thing, like with Clockwork Sorcerer, where, you know, I still think that Clockwork Sorcerer is a nutso class, but at least it doesn't do that until 14th level. Here on Silver Tongue, and it's limited to, 1 minute? Here with Silver Tongue, this is just straight up. Whenever you make 2 of the most common charisma ability checks in the game, you are effectively ensured to always be rolling like a 15 or higher? If not, no, likely.
If you don't have expertise, and I mean, if you're a bard, you're most likely going to take at least proficiency in one or of these 2 skills, depending on how you're planning to play the bard. But like, yes, you're looking at least a 15, or at the very minimum a 13 if you don't have proficiency, if you're building your bard like as an average bard.
Right. Like, I think the most that this should have been right here should have maybe been like on a roll of 6 or lower, you treat it as a 7. Like,
I would be a lot more okay with that.
Yeah.
Now, for comparative analysis reasons, I actually have both my PHP and Tasha's open in front of me. So a comparable feature, of course, the one that all of these are based on, is Rogue's reliable talent feature.
Right.
Which comes in at level 11. Now, what that does is it makes it, for any ability check you add your proficiency bonus to, you treat a roll as 9 or lower as a 10.
Right.
Now, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
That's tier 3 play. At that point in time, you want your character to feel like they do things incredibly reliably.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with, like, especially with what spellcasters can do. You get 6 level spells at that level. I'm okay with people being able to reduce variance at that tier of play. This is coming in at level 3.
Yeah. I think to me, this just kills a lot of the risk behind like interaction, which to me is like removing some excitement from the game. And
also, there's another thing with that where one of the things I found when I tested flanking at my tables is because flanking made melee combat so reliable that every combat became, okay, we need to flank, and no other strategy was even considered.
Sure.
This does the same thing.
Yeah.
Why would you ever let anyone else in your party make charisma checks when this bard almost literally can't fail them?
Well, okay, so if I might pose an argument to that, then what do you say to the counter argument that, well, of course, this is supposed to be the face of the party?
I mean, here's the thing, though. Roleplay is an entire pillar of the game.
Exactly.
And just like in combat, everyone should be able to have their shining moments. We all get turns in combat to make sure no one feels entirely left out.
Right.
If you have one person talking all the time to NPCs, you're literally just going to have people sitting there waiting for the bard to do their thing. And there's not even that sense of tension. Like one of the best things about roleplay is when your bard makes this incredible Hail Mary deception check to try to get everyone out of trouble. And everyone sits on their seat, on the edge of their seats when they roll that D20 die, hoping for a good result. And this it removes that tension and just makes them obviously the best person to approach any like role play situation. Because persuasion and deception are, as you said, the most common.
And like, you know what kind of bugs me about this is like, okay, what role are you going to ask a player for to haggle for the price of an item? Probably persuasion or deception, right? Or like to sell an item. Or like, we're talking about, this is going to come into play so much, so often. And this is just straight up that like, it's so easy for you to build into this to ensure you're never rolling below a 17. I think that Silver Tongue, despite the fact that this is completely out of combat related, well, you could say you're parlaying, something like that. Sure, whatever. In which case, if it comes into play in combat for parlay, you're now the best negotiator. Like I just don't. I think Silver Tongue could have been their 14th level feature, and it would have been okay there. You know, it would have been pretty nice.
Yeah, as the capstone, this would have been good. Like I honestly believe that, especially because there are feats such as at least one's from the UA. I'm not sure if they're ever actually printed, but it's one of the few UAs I actually allow in my games because I love the skill feats. Mm-hmm. Silver Tongued lets you do stupid things if you can deceive people in the middle of combat. Which once again, that's not official, so it doesn't really come into my analysis too much here.
But like, you know, the other thing about this that I'm thinking about now that you mentioned that is like I hate how much design space that this cuts off, because now I'm thinking like if I wanted to design something to like give you a benefit whenever let's say you make a perception or deception check in combat, the first feedback I'm going to get from anybody that looks at it in playtesting is going to be, well, that's busted with College of Eloquence. I can multi-class.
It's the great weapon master fallacy and the sharpshooter fallacy. Mm-hmm. Those two feats are so ridiculously good that and they're so ubiquitous in their use because they're so good,
right,
that you have to take them into account for balancing.
Yeah.
And it sucks.
Yeah. So I think Silver Tongue is one that, now this is going to be one of those ones that like we can talk about it all day long. I can hear all the, you know, counter arguments to it and whatever. I do feel like at this point, especially because it's given to you at 3rd level, and these are the most common charisma, like out of combat checks, I think that this is just way too good. This breaks apart part of the social fun of D&D, and this
it breaks down the social component of D&D.
Yeah. And again, like you said, why would anybody else in the party go up and talk to somebody in town whenever they know that you've got this feature on you? And this is passive. Doesn't require any uses, has no limitations. It is just straight up. Effectively, you can't roll a 17 or lower when you make a persuasion or deception check. So yeah, I'm gonna move that one up to gray. But
if this were level 6, I wouldn't be as upset. If it were the capstone, sure, I'd be happiest with it there. But because it's level 3,
right,
that's my major issue with it.
Now we're talking about one that has a definite combat mechanic here, very clearly tied in. Like, this is supposed to be something right here that is supposed to be this bard's big way that they set up in combat, and that's unsettling words. And I have heard, and not just talking with you and Benjamin, I've heard from multiple designers on the math on this, and the overwhelming majority thing I'm hearing is that this is way too damn good to be giving to this bard. Unsettling words. You can spend words.
This feature terrifies me as a DM.
Yeah. How are you supposed to challenge players with this? I mean, anyways, 3rd level college.
Honestly, what this feature says is you cannot throw a humanoid boss at an enemy at level 3 anymore, because Bard gets access to hold person at level 3.
Yeah.
And if you have this and hold person, I can almost guarantee you, unless there is some act of the dice gods, that boss is not succeeding on its save against that hold person.
You can send words laced with magic that can unsettle a creature and cause it to doubt itself. As a bonus action, you can expend one of your Vardic Inspiration die and choose one creature you can see within 60 feet of you. Roll the Vardic Inspiration die. The creature must subtract the number rolled from the next saving throw it makes before the start of your next turn. Notice, the big thing, viewers out there, to notice, this is not tied in to a saving throw that it must fail beforehand. There is no burden of proof here. This is...
And it doesn't only apply to you.
Right.
If you as the bard do not have a spell that needs to go off, you can use your action and cast a spell, and then use this to set up an ally saving throw spell.
Like,
this is, in my opinion, one of the best setup tools in the entirety of the edition.
Oh, it very well may be the best, like, alley-oop, whatever. Like, bonus action, you can use it before or after your action, however you want to set that up, do whatever. And then, if it's just having to subtract that from the next saving throw it makes, think about how well this combines with Bestow Curse, where if it fails the save against Bestow Curse, then it has disadvantage on those the one that you choose for it. Like, imagine how you could exploit that. Now, Contagion is still real bad. I think that spell is still real terrible. But I think we're looking at the possibility of Contagion being set up through like Bestow Curse with Unsettling Words. We're getting pretty scary close into like me thinking that you might actually see Contagion actually pop off in the first game of 5e ever, you know? Unsettling
I actually
Words.
wrote a subclass that makes really good use of Contagion in the Curse of Plague in the Accursed supplement, which will, of course, be seen in the remaster as well. But I had to do some, finagling to make that spell work in that subclass.
Yeah. But like, okay, so for Unsettling Words, the big ones that Vard gets access to that we're having to kind of worry about with this spell or with this feature, right? Like you said, Hold Person. Hold Person is so detrimental, especially if we're looking at an average roll of 3.5 right here, right? Now, for audience out there that doesn't know, the mathematics that we've figured out that advantage/disadvantage kind of has on a dice roll, it influences the roll of about a positive or negative 4.5, right? It's
roughly,
like,
yes.
That's, so if you have advantage, most likely you're getting about a 4.5, which is like rolling a d8, or disadvantage, subtracting 4.5 to the roll. So what Unsettling Words lets you do is as a bard, now your Bardic Inspiration, sure, right here, it's tied into a long rest. Eventually, this becomes a short rest. And you have a number of uses of your Bardic Inspiration equal to your Charisma mod, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not
it's long rest at this level, but short rest in 2 levels.
Oh my god. This is so, and then right there, short rest in 2 levels. You are bonus action causing what is mathematically about the same as disadvantage, allowing you to set up for one of your other bards.
It also becomes mathematically identical to disadvantage at level 5.
Yep.
Because the average of a D8 is 4.5.
Yeah. And then it's going to get better than disadvantage. Like, that's so nuts. Unsettling Words.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so this is a feature that, like, usually, like I said, I'm trying to, whenever I give something a gray, I'm usually looking at it and thinking that this is, I can prove that this is exploitable, right? But this is a feature that I'm looking at and I'm just thinking, no, this is just too strong. How do we come to understand, or how do we come to the agreement of something just being too strong for D&D 5e?
Hey, I got you here, actually.
Good.
Because Taron has no idea I have this, but I actually have my PHP open to the College of Lore subclass right now, because we have given our quantitative arguments, but we have not given a qualitative argument.
Okay.
Now, can we agree that College of Lore prior to this is probably the best bard subclass?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because Cutting Words is so good, right?
Yeah.
If Taron, if you wouldn't mind in your D&D Beyond, pull up the Cutting Words feature so that we can compare it to what Unsettling Words does.
Got it.
Because Cutting Words, when a creature that you can see within 60 feet of you makes an attack roll, an ability check, or a damage roll, you can use your reaction to expend one of your uses of Bardic Inspiration, rolling a Bardic Inspiration die and subtracting the number rolled from the creature's roll. Mm-hmm. So the action economy is relatively comparable. A reaction is something that a bard will not normally use at this level. So it's actually a little bit easier to use Cutting Words than it is Unsettling Words, because bonus action, the bard uses quite a bit. But saving throw first versus attack, ability check, or damage roll. Mm-hmm. An attack or a damage roll is a single occurrence, whereas a saving throw here, as we discussed, can turn into Hold Person or Tasha's Hideous Laughter,
right? Which
is a recurring debuff effect. Same thing with an ability check. Oh, I'm using my reaction to cause a creature to fail a grapple escape check is not nearly as good as I'm using a Bardic Inspiration and a bonus action to make a person fail a Hold Person.
Right.
But on top of that, there is a final sentence in Cutting Words that Unsettling Words notably lacks. And that is, the creature is immune if it can't hear you or if it's immune to being charmed. So Cutting Words, there's an out for the DM there.
Yep.
give something that's immune to being charmed, it doesn't work. Unsettling Words does not have that out, which is funny because given the lore and the name of the feature, you'd figure immune to being frightened would be a pretty good out for this feature.
So you want to hear the counter argument I've heard whenever I've made that, and why I just don't really like. And I know as soon as I say this, you're gonna scoff. The counter argument I've heard to that is that legendary resistance exists.
Yeah, tier 3 and 4.
Yeah, at like way higher level creatures, and not on every.
This is tier 1.
This is way like, part of why I think that Monk is generally actually kind of undervalued is that it's a legendary resistance burner. Because if that boss doesn't blow its legendary resistance against Stunning Strike, that's going to end a lot of combats real damn quick. So
I mean, and the crazy thing with this feature too is it's also a legendary resistance burner.
Yeah.
But tied, much like a monk, tied to a
short rest,
a short rest recharge at level 5 at least. Just to clarify, at level 5.
Yeah, at level 5.
But the thing here is, Stunning Strike lasts a turn. The effects that you can make go off with this last significantly longer.
Yeah. Well, they can last the rest of that creature's lifetime, which will probably be over in like 2 rounds.
Such as with Hold Person or Hold Monster, because if a creature is paralyzed for a minute, that's a very dead creature, unless they have buddies that can break the spellcaster's concentration.
Oh man, this works to set up Stunning Strike.
Yes, it does.
Oh my god.
Yes, it does.
Oh my god.
This works to set up every degenerate thing. Any degenerate thing that requires a saving throw, this sets up at only the low cost of a Bardic Inspiration, without even really affecting your action economy.
I love how like the strongest setup feature I think we've ever seen on a subclass is called Unsettling. Like So
I mean, it is unsettling. It's deeply unsettling.
I think that this is something that we're looking at as this is too good right here at 3rd level, and possibly something that could have been a capstone feature and been like, wow, that's real good.
If this were a capstone, I would be incredibly happy with that as a capstone.
Yeah, that would look sick as this class's capstone. But Unsettling Words. So I think this is something that I would say that as of right now, like, I'm just not hearing any good counter arguments to say that this is not great. Because and to any of my viewers out there, I have been trying to get opinions on this for the last, when did we first start talking about this? Like earlier this week, right?
Yeah, I think it was on like Monday or Tuesday.
And I have a pretty good network of some pretty reputable like designers. So I will say that most of the people I've talked with about this feature are overwhelmingly saying that this is just too good to put on a 3rd level like subclass feature. So without the counters and everything too there, the fact that this completely outshadows what every single other bard in the game is getting, I'm gonna have to give Unsettling Words a gray. Well, I just marked it purple. Let's go gray. It's just this is too good in too many scenarios without enough counters. And the fact that there's no burden of proof there, right? Like usually you would think, I mean, roll the Bardic Inspiration die and then that's it, right? Like it's just you point, you make this thing happen, cool, go. Nobody.
Yeah, there's no saving throw. There's no way for the DM to counter this except for blowing a legendary resistance. Yeah. And that is an incredibly high resource for something like this.
Well, and even still, you get 5 uses of this realistically. The most legendary resistances a creature has is 3.
I mean, at third level, when your charisma modifier is on average a +3 for a bard,
sure,
you could burn through a boss's entire legendary resistances.
Any boss in the game, like, yeah, it's so. Yeah. So with those 2 features, we'll move on to Unfailing Inspiration. 6th level College of Eloquence feature. Your inspiring words are so persuasive that others feel driven to succeed. When a creature adds one of your Vardic Inspiration dice to its ability check, attack roll, or saving throw, and the roll fails, the creature can keep the Bardic Inspiration die. I feel like this is just so good for Bard. This should have been one of the optional class features.
I both agree and disagree.
You think?
The reason behind that is Bardic Inspiration is already an anti-failure tool.
Sure.
You don't have to blow it until you believe there's a good chance you failed.
Right.
And so I'm not sure I'd want this available to every single bard.
Okay.
I'm actually kind of happy that it's in a bard that seems to be like the Bardic Inspiration bard.
Sure.
Because they get a Bardic Inspiration feature at every level.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about this that I find very, very funny is that this feature has to be good. It has to be ridiculously good.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's trying to give you a reason to use a Bardic Inspiration for something that isn't unsettling words.
Right.
But I mean, it doesn't succeed. I would still use it for unsettling words every time.
Yeah. No, I mean, for real. But like, would you say that it is incentivizing you, or it? Well, no. Yeah, no. You're right. It is. It's
it
like
is trying to incentivize you to use it for something other than unsettling words, but I think it fails. On any other bard, this would definitely be purple, and I'd be very happy with it.
Unfailing Inspiration fails to do what you... We're just lining all these up right now. No, I'm in line to agree with you, because unsettling words to me is just so insanely good in every situation that I mean,
it's
this is
honestly
just...
the best comparison is one you said. It's like Stunning Strike. Why would you use your key points for anything else?
Right.
On a monk. Unsettling words feels the exact same way to me.
I would say if you made the change of like moving unsettling words up somewhere, then I would say that Unfailing Inspiration is a purple. I'm going to just leave it purple to just say like that's how good I feel that it is. But I think coming after unsettling words, in general, I just don't think you're going to really use that all that much.
On any other bard, this would be like an automatic, oh, this is an awesome feature. But on this bard, no, it's not.
I'm like, okay. And then moving from that, universal speech. I love this feature. I love universal speech.
I also am an enormous fan of this feature, but I do have a gripe.
Mm-hmm.
Why does this bard get 2 features at level 6?
Right. Now that's very much a messy kind of feature bloat sort of a thing, right? Like, I trust me, I totally hear you there. And it's one of the things that I think of, like, how is it that they knew that they would give you 2 features that were this damn good at 3rd level and not space the power out somehow? You know, like universal speech. If this were given to you at 3rd level and at least wait for unsettling words until 6th, I think we might have really had something here. But I think universal speech, let me just read it real quick for those who come to my videos to actually hear my thoughts on these features. So 6th level College of Eloquence feature, you gain the ability to make your speech intelligible to any creature. As an action, choose one or more creatures within 60 feet of you, up to a number equal to your charisma modifier, minimum of 1 creature. The chosen creatures can magically understand you, regardless of the language you speak, for 1 hour. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest, unless you expend the spell slot to use it again. It's like the tongue spell, right? Basically just...
It's actually not. After rereading it, it's not the tongue spell.
Okay.
Because tongue spell lets you understand them in return.
Oh, okay. So it can understand you, but you can't... Yeah, that's right. Okay.
That's what I find hilarious about this.
That's funny.
You're so eloquent that they understand you, but you don't give a crap.
Right. And it's actually pulling from some old school D&D with that, because we like doing some research on some of like rune speakers and rune magic back in the day. If you knew the language of if you knew supernal, which was like the runes of celestials, no matter whatever you spoke in, if you spoke in supernal, every creature, no matter what type, no matter what languages it knows, can understand what you're saying. I was like, that is such a cool flavor for that. And I love that with universal speech. I like the flavor that's here. But like, again, there's just feature bloat. And I think, we can look at this and think, this is a good feature. But like, this just seems to pale in comparison to anything else they've gotten so far.
I mean, we can talk about how we'd fix it later, because I definitely have a lot of ideas of how I personally would change this subclass.
That might be a separate video. I mean, if you'd be down for that.
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that'd be a nice one to tweak, because I know tweaking a few of these.
I mean, we talked a little bit about maybe doing a series where we just kind of sit down and talk about the broken subclasses and how to fix them.
I mean, we might get around to doing that. I think that might be actually kind of a fun series to just talk about, like, you know, an overhaul, something we felt might be a little strong for 5e. But Infectious Inspiration, let's do this last one, and we'll give our final thoughts on it. 14th level College of Eloquence feature. When you successfully inspire someone, the power of your eloquence can now spread to someone else. When a creature within 60 feet of you adds one of your Vardic Inspiration die to its ability check attack roll or saving throw, and the roll succeeds, you can use your reaction to encourage a different creature other than yourself that can hear you within 60 feet of you, giving it a Vardic Inspiration die without expending any of your Vardic Inspiration die uses. You can use this reaction a number of times, equal to your Charisma modifier, minimum of once, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So we have somewhat, kind of hypothetically, in a way, doubled your uses of Bardic Inspiration with this bard.
Unless you use unsettling words. It's another thing they're trying to do to get you to not use unsettling words all the time.
So my thing I've noticed with a few of these subclasses that I've had some irks with is that they generally seem to be apologizing for themselves, in that they'll propose a feature and it seems like everything else in the class or the subclass is just kind of making up for, like, okay, we were experimenting with that, this is cool, but like, let's see what we can do to make that actually work. Or what can we do to bring that to, like, you know, they thought of a mechanic and then they just ran with it. And then they kind of realized later on, like, we want to keep that, but we're not really quite sure how to disincentivize people from always using that. Like, Wild Magic Barbarian, right, is the perfect example of one that I thought initially looked super cool. And then I realized over the last few months, I was like, these features just kind of feel like they're making up for each other. Like, it just feels like the Wild Magic Barbarian is eventually like, you know, we realize that part of the trade-off is that it's unreliable. So everything else later on was just, let's make this one feature more reliable.
But here's the thing. That's what I actually like about Wild Magic subclasses. That's as many problems as they can cause, especially Wild Magic Sorcerer.
Yeah.
What I love about it is when you're a third level or first level in the case of Sorcerer, you don't have enough magical juice or know-how to control the chaotic magic.
Right.
But as you level up and you get more used to it, you get more control. And that's the narrative arc of the subclass. And I actually like those because of that reason.
I love the narrative, but, like, you know, talking about it in terms of a class, if we're just doing, like, you know, comparative analysis, right? Because I think a lot of people that have come to my channel and they like kind of the way I talk about things is because I'm trying to analyze them as, like, you know, usually I'm thinking, is this feature going to be useful in a lot of different situations? General strength, you know, how do I feel about how powerful the feature is? And then I'm really looking at mechanical efficiency because, like, you know, good action economy coverage, especially on certain subclasses, is really key. You know, Barbarian is like, it is all about, you want great stuff you can use on your bonus action that isn't, you know, taking up the space of rage. Like, if you have something you can do as your reaction, that's also very, like, you know, good action economy coverage is something that's very, very key to a subclass's strength.
Here's the thing, though. Path of the Wild Magic would be incredibly playable if the Wild Magic options scaled.
Yes.
The fact that they don't scale is why that class gets so weak at higher levels. Because the damage never improves. If you look at Storm Herald Barbarian, the reason that subclass works is because of the scaling.
Right. I mean, that was my fix, was, you know, I put it, like, what was it, like 10th level, they just add an additional die of damage, and then, like, well, that's a whole other thing. I keep talking about how I would tweak some of these, but, so, Infectious Inspiration. I mean, this is a great use of your reaction. The action economy for Bard isn't really super hogged up on its reaction. So,
well, at this level, it might be.
You think?
Because at 10th level, most bards take counterspell.
Nope, you're right. Yep. Okay.
That said, I do love this feature on any other bard subclass. Actually, I like it on this subclass if Unsettling Words wasn't on there. The reason why is because there is an incredibly elegant synergy between this and Unfailing Inspiration.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I super agree with you there.
And I love little mechanical nods like that. I mean, I design my own player options like that.
Yeah.
And just, I love that interaction there where one helps you not fail and the other takes advantage of that not failing.
Yeah. Yeah. I that's, one of the things that I always think I look at whenever I really like a subclass. I'm like, what kind of narrative can you evoke through this synergy? Because usually the synergy of something else, like previously, that's not just inherently this thing gets stronger. Now we're talking about you created a unique mechanic through Unfailing Inspiration that it's getting a nice, like, sprinkles on top glitter right here, like this is, I really love that in general, but
like, honestly, this is what a good capstone is.
Yeah.
Because a good capstone is a payoff for your investment.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And this is a literal mechanical payoff for Unfailing Inspiration and using that feature well.
I can't help but feel that this is going to be a little bit of a controversial one. Because I think a lot of people really love Bard. I mean, I know people absolutely love Bard, right?
And I love Bard. I mean, come on, man.
but I think that this may be one of the ones, like, is it necessarily exploitable? No. But if I'm looking at ones like Echo Knight, and I think Echo Knight has a problem with completely breaking down the exploration pillar of play, where it has a resource that is for free. You can create a thing that has 1 hit point and run this in the traps, run this into all kinds of dangerous situations, and literally have 0 penalty because you are regenerating an object here. Long death. I think the fact that you can blow 1 key point and just come back with 1 hit point if you're reduced to 0 hit points is a little nuts. I think that
it will burn through your key points really fast, though.
Sure, but I think that that's too cheap of a resource to tie. Like, I try to think about what that does to narrative. Like, you suffer crushing, horrible, like, rocks fall, everyone dies damage, and yet you're okay because you blew a key point.
It should have been more key points. I will cede that point.
Yeah. Now, eloquence. Me putting this in overpowered. The reason for that being that this is objectively, we're talking about something that just completely breaks what should be the convention of a face, in D&D, and that you're no longer talking about chance of failure happening here. Like, we can blow that off. Chance of failure, if you're always rolling above a 17 in terms of social interaction, for the 2 most common social interaction ability checks you're going to make in the game, that's way too good. That is so freaking strong. And
that's stacked on top of a feature that near guarantees your spells connect.
Eventually that getting up to being 6.5 that you subtract to something saving throw, you can think of that in a way as if your spellcasting ability score has been increased by 13. Well, we'll say your spellcasting score has been increased by plus 12 because you're subtracting 6.5 on average to the roll, up to 12 from the roll. So at that point, it would be as if you had a plus 24 to your spellcasting ability. Yeah, I mean, that is insane. Insane. Spellcasting ability score. Let me clarify that.
I mean, it can only subtract 1, and that's the weakness that Cutting Words has.
Right.
But we're just talking about on average.
Yeah, it's a snowball
The average
effect.
Is what's scary here. It's very snowbally. It's extremely snowbally.
Like, you set this up like we were saying, hold person alone with this is nuts. Absolutely nuts. Like, let's look at some more of the spells in the Bard spell list and just kind of, let me see here.
Let's limit ourselves to just 2nd level, just to illustrate the point at level 3.
Sure. Looking at some of these spells, Vicious Mockery is on here, which is kind of, I mean, if you want to talk about kind of snowbally effect, disadvantage on the next attack roll, that's kind of blah. Bane.
I mean, that's basically just making it cutting words at that point.
Yeah. I mean, but you've got damage on top of it now.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Dissonant Whispers. I haven't looked at a ton of the brand new Tasha's spells, but even Hideous Laughter, man, like Wisdom saving throw or fall prone. Not sure it's
and just have no action economy. Yeah.
Yeah. Blindness, deafness. Blindness, deafness. Effectively, you're making it to where all attack rolls against that creature have advantage. Like, sure, at the end of each of its turns, it can make the saving throw again. Cool. You're going to have a turn again to set this up. Like, that's if it succeeds. I know some of these spells I just don't have memorized. Enthrall. God, Hold Person is
Enthrall has a lot of uses in exploration and roleplay.
Yeah.
Not a very good combat feature, but good in exploration and roleplay.
Okay, so but combat wise, Shatter. Hold Person. I mean, Hold Person alone, right? Choose a humanoid that you can see within range. The target must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw or be paralyzed for the duration. At the end of each of its turns, the target can make another Wisdom save. On a success, the spell ends on the target. So, what do you think about like the idea that people say, well, sure, but it's only until the end of that creature's turn, and then it can make the saving throw again? Like, what's your counter to that?
Oh, you can use this feature again.
Yeah, right. You can use this feature again, or during the creature's turn while it's paralyzed. I mean, we're talking about it's incapacitated, automatically fails strength and dexterity saving throws, and attack rolls against it have advantage. Do what?
Auto crits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Instant
paralyzed
crits.
Causes auto crits.
And any attack. That's funny because that's actually also making it to where you can. That is point blank range critical hits right there too. Like, I mean, even ranged attack rolls are a critical hit within 5 feet of the creature. Oh, that's so funny. God.
Just send your paladin and get some instant divine smites. You know how it is.
And yes,
some crit divine smites right there.
That is only against humanoids, like it, just because I think realistically, if I'm trying to sum up my opinions on it, and because I keep hearing people say, well, it can do this, this, and this has a counter to it because whatever reason, I think the argument and really my thought against that argument is just because a counter exists doesn't mean that something is not above balance for the game. I think that this is very unhealthy for not only, I think that College of Eloquence existing is something that's very unhealthy for the social aspect of the game. Because we're taking out, like, you're never going to fail a persuasion check or a deception check in this now. Like, realistically.
Honestly, this is overpowered for the same reason Hexblade is.
You think it's just too...
If this exists, why would you play any other Bard subclass? Or if Hexblade exists, why would you play any other Warlock subclass? They're just head and shoulders above the others.
I was thinking like, well, you could go lore because you want more spells, but I'm still like, yeah, but your spells just aren't going to be as good as they are with Eloquence. You have a perfect setup tool with that. Like, yeah, I think it's a little bit guilty of the Hexblade stuff. I think you're right there. But like, we kept Hexblade at S, and that's still one that I think is definitely pushing it, but like, for me with Eloquence, it's just breaking down that pillar of play. I don't like that it does that. I think that OP is the right place to put it. If you want to play a face, like, are you really playing a face anymore? Because it's like,
no, there's no risk.
Yeah, exactly.
You're playing a dictator.
Yeah, you're exactly. You're no longer playing a face. You are a manipulator. You are somebody who is able to just come in and say, the conversation is going this way. And I don't think that that's a very healthy thing. I think that this is a bard that whenever we see an errata, we're going to see this one changed. I cannot help but think that this one is going to get nerfed.
What's weird is they've had a chance to change it. This was published in the Theros book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you're right. Why didn't they change it?
I didn't buy that book just because there wasn't nearly enough content, and I was very unimpressed with what my friends are sharing with me. Right. But like, I can't imagine that it was printed like this, and then we would have seen a lot more uproar about that book if this were printed like exactly like this in that book, I think.
Yeah. Huh.
Maybe it's just because Tasha's is so popular and is like the first like real expansion of subclasses since Xanathar's that we're seeing this.
Man, I felt like I took a look at this in the Unearthed Arcana and felt like this was like good, but not this bad. Like, man, that was so.
I remember being the same. I remember like not minding the Unearthed Arcana version.
I'm kind of wondering, just because this conversation's gotten started up, and I know that I've put so many subclasses from Tasha's up here in S, like way more than I usually do this quick off the bat with, a new book.
There are a lot of just straight up strong subclasses in this book.
No, yeah, like, for sure. I mean, have you seen?
No doubt.
Have you seen one of my videos that you disagreed with a rating I gave it so far?
I think I disagreed with a little bit of your wild magic. I think you were a little bit too hard on that one.
You think?
But I can't remember any others that I like out and out disagreed with.
So that's been our look at College of Eloquence Bard. Thank you again for joining me, Ross. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Having you on anytime, you're welcome. Again, you can go find Ross's work over on the Dungeon Masters Guild. You can find him under Outlandish Adventures is it Outland Advent PR on Twitter?
Yeah, Outland Advent PR on Twitter. I also have a Discord, which is pinned to the top of my Twitter. And I also have a Patreon that I would be very grateful if you were to support. Have some pretty cool rewards on there, such as being able to see and contribute to future projects if you're interested. And also, I have several tiers where I will review your work for you at a much lower rate than I would normally charge.
Well, and I will say that, like, because I had you and Benjamin consulting on the merchant, I think that's what actually pushed that up to... you all really got me thinking about, if I was going to do an overhaul, what could I do to improve the weaknesses of it initially? Where I was like, I want to streamline it. I want to make it to where this is going to play just like other classes. Let's remove some math and whatever. And then like talking with you all and working with you all over that, it was like, you all made that class so much more worth it and I think fun to play. Again, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to leave links to all of Ross's stuff down in the description below. I want to give a shout out to my Patreon sponsors. I've noticed there's actually some crossover between Ross, Benjamin, and I's Patreon sponsors, so I think all of you.
Due in large part to Taron's YouTube, so thank you so much, because a lot of them have found my Discord through the videos you've done with me.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm really glad.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's definitely some people that have jumped over, and I greatly appreciate those people.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm super happy to hear that. Anyways, to everyone watching, hey, thank you all so much for being here. Hope you all are staying safe, staying healthy, and can't wait to see you in the next one.